The movie begins on a crisp, chilly day. During her routine jog, Casey Belden, a young woman in her 20s, comes across an intriguing sight. A lone glove lies abandoned on the road, catching her attention. However, her focus quickly shifts as she notices a young boy with strangely scary bright blue eyes staring back at her. The boy's gaze appears empty, and she notices that he's missing one of his gloves. The atmosphere takes an unexpected turn as the young boy's form suddenly changes, turning into a masked dog who goes off into the woods. Intrigued, Casey decides to track the masked dog as it leads her through the woods. She eventually arrives at a heap of dry leaves, over which the mask lies. She picks it up, but the strings of the mask seem to be buried underneath, so she starts to dig through the leaf. As the leaves fall away, her heart thunders as she comes across a delicate. This terrifying moment, however, fades as Casey gradually awakens, realizing that what she experienced was, in fact, luckily a dream. Seeking insight into this puzzling dream, Casey turns to Romy, her best friend known for her superstitious and spiritual inclinations. Romy sheds light on the symbolism behind the dream, telling her that a baby represents change and rejuvenation, and a dog invoking curiosity due to its mythological association as a messenger of the deceased. Casey works as a babysitter for the Newton family's young boys. She just put them to sleep and is cheerfully talking to Rome on the phone. The evening takes an unsettling turn abruptly when faint footsteps echo from the upper floor, adding to her unease. The baby monitor suddenly comes to life, with a strange message telling her to look in the mirror and that some people are doorways. Alarmed, Casey ends her phone conversation and calls out for the children. She then ascends the stairs to investigate. What she discovers there is Matty, using a mirror to present his infant brother with its own reflection, all while whispering strange phrases. In an attempt to intervene and comprehend the situation, Casey confronts Matty. However, Matty suddenly responds with aggression, smashing the mirror forcefully onto Casey's head. Then he proceeds to tell the startled woman, in a trance, that someone named Jumbie wants to be born now. Shortly after, the parents of the Newton household finally return home and find Casey with a wound on her head. Gail, the mother, exhibits concern for Casey's well-being and urges her to do a thorough medical checkup at the hospital. Casey tells her that it's all right and prepares to depart from the house. Her gaze inadvertently catches sight of Matty, still holding his intense stare from the upper floor, sending a shiver down her spine. Outside the house, Casey stumbles upon the very same glove that she saw in her strange dream. Freaked out, she quickly goes away from there. Upon returning to her own home, she exchanges greetings with her father, Gordon, and wearily bids him goodnight. As Casey prepares to settle in for the night, she hears faint but distinct noises emanate from the direction of her medicine cabinet. Alarmed, she promptly switches the lights back on and cautiously opens the cabinet, only to find it empty. Dismissing the incident as a figment of her imagination, Casey proceeds to retire for the night. However, her slumber is soon disrupted by a persistent knocking sound, seemingly originating from within the medicine cabinet itself. The mysterious rapping continues, hinting at the presence of something unseen on the other side. The next day, while Casey is making breakfast, she gets terrified when she cracks an egg, only to have an ugly insect emerge from it. She quickly dumps the thing, and while she is cleaning up, from the window of her kitchen, she sees Matty once again, standing motionless outside her house. Shortly after, she goes to college and meets up with her friends. There, she confides in Romy, her boyfriend Mark, and their mutual friend Lisa about the bizarre events. Mark, ever rational, brushes off the situation. On the other hand, Romy, known for her spiritual insights, raises an alarming point. She tells the group about the tradition of not showing mirrors to infants, citing the superstition that it brings bad luck. According to myths, the group laughs it off and then goes off to class. While Casey is attending her class, the strange sense of unease refuses to abate. Once again, she finds herself disconcerted as the haunting phrase, "Jumbie wants to be born now," starts appearing on the blackboard and even into her own notebook. Determined to shake off these unsettling hallucinations, she focuses intently, trying to regain her grip on reality. However, her efforts falter when the very insect she had encountered earlier in breakfast lands on her hand, causing her to abandon her class. Casey takes refuge in the comfort of a shower, hoping to cleanse her mind of the turmoil surrounding her. Before long, she finds herself engaging in a conversation with Romy within the confines of a locker room. Their exchange takes a disconcerting turn, as Romy notices a change in Casey's eye color. In response to this unsettling discovery, Casey takes the smart step of going to see a doctor. The doctor explains something that makes her situation more complicated. He tells her about a condition called heterochromia, where one eye can be a different color from the other. This can happen when someone is born or if they hurt their eye. Sometimes, it might even mean there's a serious type of skin cancer called malignant melanoma. The doctor carefully checks Casey's eyes, takes pictures of them, and uses special tools to keep her eyelids open for a closer look. Afterwards, Casey thanks Mark for being there with her and helping her. While they're walking back home on the busy city streets, once again, the pale blue-eyed boy from her dream makes an appearance, but this fleeting apparition vanishes in an instant, leaving Casey in a state of confusion and disarray. As the night falls, Casey and Mark have an intimate moment and find comfort in each other's arms, lying in their cozy bed together. The room is dimly lit, and they start talking about deep and mysterious things, like life and the mysterious world that might exist beyond. While they talk about these serious subjects, Their conversation eventually turns to a more personal and haunting part of Casey's history, her mother, Janet, who had passed away. Casey goes back to a memory from her childhood. She remembers visiting her mother when she was in a mental institution. This memory is very clear in her mind. She saw her mother there, and the picture that remains in her memory is really sad. Her mother had the same heterochromia that Casey has now, but she looked defeated, like she had given up. Seeing her mother like that was really hard for Casey, and it left a strong mark on her feelings and thoughts. Even now, in the present, she struggles with mixed emotions about her mother. She feels unresolved anger because she believes her mother left her behind. Before going to bed, Casey goes to clean up and naturally looks at her eyes in the mirror, thinking about the strange changes she's been going through. But as she does this, the persistent knocking sounds from the medicine cabinet come back again. Feeling both worried and brave, she opens the cabinet door. What she sees inside is really unsettling. Boy from her dreams is there. The shock of seeing him makes her scream, and the sound fills the quiet of the night. Waking up Mark, he hurries to her side, finding her in the bathroom, visibly shaken and unnerved. But when he looks at the cabinet, everything seems fine. In an effort to escape the source of her distress, Casey decides to remove the medicine cabinet entirely, eliminating the source through which these unsettling encounters seem to reach her. The next morning, amidst one of her routine jogs, Casey's curiosity is piqued by an unusual commotion in the neighborhood around the Newton residence. A sense of intrigue prompts her to inquire about the situation, and a fellow neighbor somberly reveals that passed away. As Casey watches, she witnesses the heart-wrenching scene unfold. Gail, consumed by grief, reaches out to her lifeless as it is solemnly carried away on a cart. Adding to the unsettling atmosphere, Maddie remains strangely by the window watching them. Sometimes later, Casey goes to visit the doctor to receive her reports. There, her doctor asks about the possibility of her having a twin sibling. He explains a concept called genetic mosaicism. When twin pregnancies involve the merging of placentas, genetic material can get mixed up, causing different eye colors. Even though this is a surprising idea, the doctor tells Casey that her eyes are healthy. He also recommends talking to a genetic counselor to get more information and clarity. Carrying the weight of many surprising things she's learned, Casey feels compelled to talk to her father even though he's at work. She urgently asks him a question that's been on her mind: if she had a twin sibling. Her father's voice sounds serious as he tells her a painful truth. She was supposed to have a twin brother, but he sadly didn't. This news shocks Casey and changes how she understands her own history. It makes her wonder if this tragedy had something to do with her mother's decision to end her. Her father strongly denies this idea, amidst all the newfound information. What scares her the most is her deceased brother's nickname, Jumpy. Casey's world tilts on its axis as she grapples with this newfound knowledge. Overwhelmed by a storm of emotions, she retreats to her home. In an attempt to unravel the secrets buried within her family's past, she delves into their memoirs. Her search leads her to a film reel and a marked newspaper article, both referencing a figure named Sophie Cosma, who is associated with the ordeal of war. Yet, a more striking revelation awaits her, a photograph capturing her pregnant mother gazing at her own reflection in a mirror, with the faint presence of the mysterious boy lingering just behind her. Seeking answers about her twin brother and her mother's history, Casey and Romy set off on a journey to a nursing home to meet Sophie Cosma. As they walk through the corridors, they're greeted by the warm presence of Sophie, who gives off a friendly and inviting vibe. The conversation guides them to Sophie's room. Casey's observant eyes notice a spot on the wall where a mirror used to hang, but now it's gone. Suddenly, Sophie asks about the possibility of Casey having a twin, sharing that she understands this from her own experience as a former twin herself. Casey inquires if she knew her mother and presents her with the newspaper article. Her attention is immediately drawn to a distinctive red bracelet, the very same that Casey had noticed on her mother's wrist on the day she passed away. Despite this intriguing connection, Sophie claims not to recognize Casey's mother. Seeking further clarity, Casey shares a photograph retrieved from her family's archives, an image that elicits a startling reaction from Sophie. The sight of the boy in the photograph evokes fear in the elderly woman, who abruptly demands that Casey and Romy leave the place. Confused and perturbed by Sophie's abrupt dismissal, Casey and Romy retreat to the parking lot, where they attempt to make sense of the baffling encounter. Romy offers solace to Casey, who has become consumed by paranoia, convinced that Sophie is concealing vital information from her. She confides in Romy about the unsettling experiences that have haunted her since the night of babysitting for the Newtons, revealing her fear of being haunted by a ghost. Later, after coming back from the nursing home, with Mark's assistance, Casey tries to unravel the mysteries further. Utilizing a projector, they examine the film Casey found among her mother's belongings. Yet, their investigation doesn't reveal any obviously strange discoveries, except for one important thing. The place shown in the film is the exact hospital where Casey's mother sadly took. The unsettling connection between the video and her mother's past adds an even darker layer to Casey's search for answers. In an attempt to temporarily escape from her persistent visions, Casey and her friends decide to enjoy the lively atmosphere of a club, embracing the energetic frenzy of a night out. However, her hope for a break from the visions doesn't come true. Even in the midst of the pulsating crowd, Casey sees the boy's unsettling face. This reminds her that the line between reality and strange dreams is becoming more blurred. Hoping to find solace in the restroom, Casey's condition worsens, and she starts throwing up into a toilet. Suddenly, she's faced with an image of an eye that has been vandalized, as if it's trying to get her attention. As she stares at the image, a horrifying swarm of insects and blood bursts out, creating a nightmarish scene that terrifies her. She rushes out of the bathroom in a panic, and ghostly fingers emerge from the walls, turning the scene into chaos. Amidst all this, Casey sees a vision of her mother reaching out to her. In this moment of crisis, Casey's friends fortunately rally to her side, providing solace and support. That night, following the traumatic events of the night, Casey calls Romy, her trusted confidant. With a heavy heart, recounting her encounter with her mother's spectral form and expressing her deeply rooted fears of following in her mother's tragic footsteps, her friend consoles her and suggests placing an open pair of scissors under her pillow to ward off evil spirits. Clinging to hope, Casey tucks the scissors beneath her pillow. But the comfort she seeks remains elusive, as Casey finds herself caught in a new realm of. She experiences a nightmare where she is floating above her own sleeping form, only to witness the disturbing sight of the boy beside her in bed. Her panic screams and a phone call snap her back to reality, jolting her awake from the nightmarish scenario. She picks up the call to find Sophie on the other end of the line. Sophie offers an apology regarding their previous encounter and asks her to come meet again, unveiling a startling truth that she is her grandmother. Through a series of pictures, Sophie tells a chilling story. She talks about a time when she and her twin brother, Bardo, during a war. The military was curious about genetics. They wanted to find answers by looking at among these tests. However, Sophie's story becomes even more terrifying as she reveals a supernatural twist that's hard to understand. Bardo's demise wasn't the end, it was the start of something awful. The spirit of a person who passed away. A Dibbuk crossed over from the world of the dead into Bardo's body. This Dibbuk made Bardo into a vessel for its. It couldn't go to the afterlife, so it existed between the world of the living and the world of the no longer alive, constantly looking for a new host. Sophie's revelation goes even deeper, exploring the special bond of twins, connected in a special way. Twins, she explains, can be like doors between different worlds, able to bridge the gap between the living and the ghostly. Sophie shares that she was able to free her brother from the spirit's control, but it's been trying to come back ever since. This spirit first tried to possess Casey's unborn twin, and when that didn't work, it turned its attention to Casey herself, and since she was born, this spirit has been circling her life, waiting for the right moment to return. Feeling desperate for a solution, Casey asks Sophie how to get rid of the spirit. Sophie mentions something called the Book of Mirrors, which has rituals for dealing with these kinds of entities. She suggests that Casey seek help from Rabbi Joseph Sendak, who might be able to assist her. Feeling drained and helpless, Casey departs from the nursing home. After obtaining a copy of the Book of Mirrors, Casey visits Rabbi Sendak. She asks if he can read the book written in Hebrew. He explains that the book comes from a branch of Jewish mysticism called the Kabbalah. But when Casey brings up the urgent need for an exorcism, Rabbi Sendak dismisses the idea, saying that spirits aren't real. He also admits that exorcism is not within his area of expertise, and that he has never done one before. Due to her desperation, Casey pleads with the rabbi to help her, as her life depends on it. However, the rabbi is hesitant and doesn't make any promises. Following Sophie's guidance, Casey takes precautions. She holds onto a protective necklace given to her, removes all the mirrors from her home, and sets up chimes that can alert her if a spirit is nearby. With the weight of the supernatural world pressing down on her, Casey does what she can to safeguard herself from the relentless entity that threatens her peace. The next day, Romy rushes to Casey's house, but a terrifying accident occurs. However, to Romy's surprise and confusion, he talks to her in a creepy and threatening way, referring to someone who is not happy with Romy helping Casey. He warns her that if she keeps being with Casey, he'll hurt her. This really disturbing encounter leaves Romy feeling deeply scared. When Romy finally reaches Casey's house, she quickly starts telling her about the frightening incident, but then stops when she notices that Casey's eyes are getting worse. She's really worried about her friend's safety. Once inside, she notices all the broken mirrors and stuff. Then, Casey tells her about her grandmother and everything she told her. Casey warns her friend to stay away since she is not safe for her anymore. But Romy wants Casey to know that she's there for her no matter what, and she promises to be Casey's best friend and support her through all the challenges they're facing. Later that night, a surreal and unsettling dream takes hold of Casey. She finds herself face to face with her mother, but the encounter takes a sinister turn as her mother undergoes a transformation into something unnatural. With a jolt, Casey realizes that she's trapped within a dream. The haunting chimes from downstairs pierce the air, signaling the presence of a malevolent spirit nearby. Simultaneously, in the nursing home, Sophie finds herself unable to sleep, disturbed by the sound of wind chimes. Attempting to illuminate her surroundings, she tries to turn on her bedside lamp, only to have it remain stubbornly dark. Armed with a flashlight, she navigates the corridors and becomes aware of distant wailing noises. As she descends a dark staircase, she notices Elite, a paralyzed resident of the nursing home, suddenly awake and crawling towards her in an unnatural manner. Looking at the scene before her, Sophie is petrified and runs for her life, but she's followed without mercy by him. He moves on all fours, his head creepy way. The chase gets scarier and scarier as Sophie tries to find a safe place. She ends up in a closet, hoping to hide, but her efforts don't work. A boy from Casey's vision shows up, and this pushes Sophie to the edge of. She screams loudly in the darkness, her cries echoing around her. In the morning, Casey heads to the nursing home with a sense of unease in the air. The presence of police suggests that something significant has occurred. Climbing the stairs, Casey's apprehension grows until she discovers her grandmother's lifeless body on the floor. Shocked, the woman is unable to comprehend the situation and runs out. Another resident hands her a letter that Sophie left, to be given to Casey in the event of her passing. In the heartfelt letter, Sophie reveals a haunting truth. Casey's mother was unable to resist the power of the Dibbuk and succumbed to it. Sophie warns Casey that this malevolent entity thrives on fear and will isolate her from the people she cares about, so she must be brave and must not let it turn her against herself. Meanwhile, in Rabbi Sendak's office, an unexplained power outage plunges the space into darkness. Picking up a flashlight, the rabbi courageously ventures downstairs to the altar area. There, he confronts a menacing sight, a growling dog with its head strangely. Undeterred, the rabbi faces the entity head-on, commanding it to leave the sacred space. Miraculously, the dog vanishes in an instant, leaving behind a sense of calm, and the lights turn back on. On the other hand, amidst the unsettling events, Casey and Romy engage in a video call, discussing the uncertainty surrounding Casey's grandmother's passing. Romy reassures Casey that it might have been a natural occurrence, trying to alleviate her friend's growing fears. Really, Romy, after everything you have been through, this is what you come up with. However, Casey firmly asserts that the spirit responsible will not rest and poses a threat to her loved ones. Right that instant, the doorbell rings, prompting her to leave her room against Casey's advice. During her absence, Casey witnesses a glimpse of the boy in Romy's mirror. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, she urgently calls Mark, instructing him to meet her at Romy's house without revealing the reason behind the request. As Romy goes to open the door, darkness envelops her house, leaving her in a state of vulnerability. She tries turning on the lights, but to no avail. Investigating a noise at the front door, she comes face to face with Maddie, who chillingly tells her that the doorway is open. Romy is confused, but the next instant, suddenly attacks her, making her struggle in fright. She desperately crawls up the flight of stairs with the malevolent following closely behind. Just in the nick of time, Casey and Mark manage to break through a glass door, entering Romy's house. However, the scene that greets them is one of Maddie's face contorts into something otherworldly, and they discover him standing beside Romy's lifeless body. Mark reacts instinctively. Before he can strike, Casey intervenes, recognizing that the spirit has transferred from Maddie to Romy's body. The situation turns ugly as Romy's body suddenly starts convulsing. Manipulated by the malevolent force within her, the couple quickly grab Maddie and leave before it's too late. They call the police, who arrive to take away poor Romy's body. The next day, Rabbi Sendak willingly meets Casey and Mark and agrees to help them with the exorcism. They meet Coach Arthur Wyndham, a priest with a dual role as a basketball coach. He offers his assistance for a powerful exorcism. A specific venue is required for the procedure, one that holds negative associations for Casey. She decides on the mental institution where her mother spent her final days. A team of volunteers, including Casey, Mark, and others willing to aid, is assembled for this crucial task. As the exorcism takes shape, all participants are briefed on the methods and equipment they'll be using. The weight of the unknown hangs heavy as they prepare to confront the malevolent force that has tormented Casey and her loved ones. Soon the exorcism starts, and Casey lies within a consecrated circle, surrounded by her allies, and the rabbi sounds the shofar. As the group recites holy phrases, they embark on a desperate and perilous journey to rid Casey of the dark entity that has taken hold of her. The boundaries between the supernatural and the mortal realm blur as they confront forces beyond comprehension while chanting. Suddenly, a torrent of strong winds sweeps through the room, as if driven by an otherworldly force. The participants, one by one, become possessed and fall to their doom in the grip of the malevolent presence. Casey is thrust into a whirlwind of memories, reliving the haunting incidents of the past days. Throughout this turmoil, the boy remains terrifyingly standing by her side. Amidst the chaos, Mark quickly releases Casey from the bindings, and they flee the room, with Casey quickly grabbing the ripped page of the book to complete the exorcism. They run out and hide within the asylum's dim hallways. Meanwhile, inside the room, everyone else is subdued except Father Arthur. The possessed priest runs out and relentlessly pursues Casey and Mark through the dim corridors, intensifying the sense of dread that envelops them. He soon catches up to them and attacks Mark. The two clash, with Mark finally managing to overpower the possessed assailant. Casey's relief is short-lived as the spirit swiftly transfers to Mark's body. She senses the change and runs for her life, but to no avail. Mark quickly catches up to Casey and attempts to strangle her against his will. Strange insect tentacles emerge from his mouth. Terrified, Casey finally uses the protective necklace given to her by Sophie to break free from Mark's hold. She hits the evil creature with the necklace and is finally released from its grasp. Just when things are dire, Rabbi Sendak arrives, teaming up with Casey in a last attempt to defeat the evil spirit. Together, they recite the potent verses from the Book of Mirrors, and a fierce battle takes place within Mark's body. The spirit's grip starts to weaken, and it's eventually forced out of Mark's body, being thrown back to the first floor of the building. After the chaos settles down, an eerie calm falls over the scene. Amidst the aftermath, a crying Casey is by Mark's side as they both watch the spirit's final defeat. Casey hugs Mark as he soon succumbs to his demise. As days pass, things start to feel more normal again. But Casey notices some small changes in her body. She takes a pregnancy test and goes to see a doctor. What she learns is astonishing. She's pregnant with twins. This discovery brings up a feeling of déjà vu for Casey. It's like the mysteries and that she's been dealing with are echoing in this new development in her life. The movie ends with a scared Casey thinking if the spirit has really been defeated.